Faith and Darren here at the Battle of Lexington, Missouri. Hope you enjoy the video.
Yeah, we're along the north side of the house here.
You see why they picked this spot?
That's the Missouri River over there.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And
It is chilly out here.
it's what?
It's chilly.
Yeah, yes, and the wind is just, you know, you talk about the wind chill. Yesterday it said something about 44, the wind chill's 34, so
Well, they're coming in. The bank said it was 29.
I didn't watch TV this morning.
Yeah, it's cold. When we were pulling in, the bank that has the temperature, it said 29. Yeah, and it's not going to get any warmer today.
Anderson brought his family here in 1851, and I think the house had started beforehand, but it will not be finished for another 2 to 3 years. We do not know what the Andersons did during this period, nor do we know even how they lived in the house or how many of them lived in the house. We know he was in the hemp business and had a warehouse and rope walk down here, which, you know, was his income type thing. He had been in the hemp business in Kentucky, and so since we're growing lots of hemp, it was just, you know, more or less natural to put him here. Lexington was that up-and-coming town in 1850. In fact, it was the 5th largest city in the state of Missouri. Much bigger than those towns west of us, because that had been Osage territory when Lexington was first settled. And so I think it became kind of a town to supply people going west, especially, I don't think there was many settlers going west. We were fur traders and things like that.
Okay.
But
So I noticed it said the Santa Fe Trail started, or there's a trail.
Part of it went through
yeah,
here.
I can't, right now I can't put a date on when it started type thing. But of course it came to Lexington and all. And some of the important people in the Santa Fe Trail lived here type thing.
Oh, okay.
Now, walls of the house are 4 bricks thick. So we're, as you can see, our walls are about 1 foot plus throughout the house type thing. The other thing is when we go outside, the lintels and the sills on the windows are cast iron, and were probably made here in Lexington.
Oh, wow. They're cast iron?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. The woodwork in the house is walnut, and he painted this floor, his pine floor, in this black and white pattern. I think he's trying to fool you into thinking either that he has that very expensive flooring or that he's with the Combs and has Kyle, because Kyle's coming in at that time. I have one thing to tell you. I do not talk about everything in the house. So if you're curious about something, you have to ask. If I say something that isn't right, you have to say something to me. So come on in the parlor.
No, if you say something that's not right, I wouldn't know if it was right or wrong. Like I said, I've never been here. Now, are these the original floors?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Or most of them are.
Most of it, yeah. I'm sure there's been some repairs over the years.
You know, there are certain things, and I will tell you, somebody set fire to the room across from us, and I gather most of the woodwork in there is reproduction and replacement. And even in here, the thing is, if you can tell the difference between kiln-dried and air-dried wood, you know the mantle, the wood around that is newer than the rest of the wood. I have seen pictures where, you know, where they took the fireplace type thing, closed it up, which wasn't unusual in a certain sense for people living in houses later to just close them up and
Yeah. Get rid of the draft, and if they're not using it.
And I don't know whether when you put a I call it pot bellies.
That's what we called them.
Yeah. So I always heard them called.
To heat, which would be much more efficient than what the fireplace is, whether you had to close up the fireplace to get it to draw right or not.
Right. Probably would
That's a
have
good
to.
thought. Yeah, it probably would.
This room, the furniture is period. We hope this is the type of furniture that Mrs. Anderson put in her front parlor, but it has all the curves and the massive
Right.
frozen furniture at that time did. We have no furnishings from the Andersons in the house. We have a chicken piano that she, as a lady, could play to entertain us, and all.
Get over there.
Yeah, I haven't played the piano since I was 10.
That was kind of a necessity for a young girl
Yeah.
to learn.
I played when I was young. I couldn't do it now.
Dixieland.
Sound like me, my mother thought her daughter should learn to play the piano.
Yep.
And she got through 3 of us, and the 4th one would rather sing than play, and decided she was going to sing for my sister's wedding, so they gave her voice lessons to do it.
Oh, that's cool.
The house is heated with fireplaces, and they're very shallow, so they burn coal. And Lafayette County has lots of coal, and it's easy to get.
Oh.
So it made sense for the area.
So they didn't burn wood, they burned coal in them instead. Okay. Probably lasted longer.
You'll kind of know when we get to the kitchen, that one burns wood, and it's much wider.
Gotcha.
This room is supposed to be Mrs. Anderson's back parlor, but the ladies of the town set up the house as a museum, and it was not to show people how people lived in a house. It was to show them the best that they could get that most people didn't have. And so back parlors are common, as you probably know.
Mm-hmm.
So they set it up as another front parlor for the second owner of the house. Hilton Davis was a lawyer here and lived in the house the longest of anybody and died in 1916. And there were still children and grandchildren here, especially grandchildren. And they got furniture from the Davis family. The bookcase belonged to them.
Oh, wow.
And then we have pieces in the other rooms that we belong to. But the parlor set is out of the 1870s and 80s. And you'll notice it's a very different design than what Mrs. Gibson's.
Had in mind, yes.
Now you said this was built in probably 1850s?
Yes. They throw around an 1853 completion date because there's an article in the newspaper about sort of this unfinished mansion and they think it's close to it now, but whether the family got in it in 53 or 54, no one knows.
It looks like a house this size would take quite a while to build.
Well,
Especially the thick walls. And
especially
everything.
back then. They didn't have the cranes and the...
Yeah, but they had better work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
that's especially if you had slaves. Well, sometimes, because I've read this woman who wrote about slavery in Missouri, Diane somebody, and she has somebody in, I want to say Boonville or around Boonville, whose husband is in the legislature, and she's always writing her husband about the head slave is always so lazy or something like this. He doesn't,
Missouri was a slave state.
He's just not gung-ho type thing. It's sort of like, how slow can I go?
Yeah. There's some people like that.
Sounds like something I'd do.
So, is there anything else that you would like to know about?
When was the last time anybody lived in here?
It was in the 1960s.
Oh, okay.
They built, in the 50s, it was the thing that the caretakers lived in the house.
Right.
so the caretaker did live in the house, or
Oh, okay.
administrator of the house, in Missouri. And then when the state took it over in 1959, somewhere in the early 60s, and they started building the administrator house.
And then make this into,
Now, is the administrator house the one that's
Yeah,
just next to the museum there?
and so that's the last time anybody did that. Before they set up that museum in the 1950s, and at that time they did have renters in the house. So somebody was living there at that time.
I love these old houses.
It's been, I understand it's been vacant 2 year periods, I think.
Yeah.
So
I'm assuming there's electric in the house.
these, I will tell you that Davis put gas lights in the house. These are not original to the house, but they are gas light fixtures that are electric.
To get a
Okay.
feel for what they had.
The fixture in the hallway is a Davis fixture, the chandeliers. But the lady who was here the longest as I don't know, I think she started out as a housekeeper, that type of thing.
Mhm.
But by the time 50 years went by, she was doing a lot more stuff than that, I think. She said that it was in one of the parlors, and I'm assuming it was a front parlor because it's an elegant thing and it is not something I would think they put in there. And one of the ladies said, because there's a molding out here, you can come out and see. I'm talking about the plaster molding on the wall.
Yeah.
And one of the ladies says, well, they always have a light in it. So they moved the chandelier out of there and put it in here. But this one, they did not elect the top. But they did the other two.
Well, that's the original. That's cool.
So
It's beautiful. I love these old houses.
They don't make them like this anymore.
No?
Probably why this is still standing.
Oh, look how thick the walls are too.
Yeah. I don't think a hurricane or a tornado would kill this.
this is set up, I call it the gentleman's corner.
Yeah.
Where Mr. Anderson probably discussed business and politics and the turbulent period here, which you know we had here on the border, and who was going to go to Kansas to retaliate for.
All the discussions in this room, I'm sure these walls could talk.
So,
And these,
and stays the 1st of July.
Okay.
The southern, they're the echelon in town. I don't know, that's not quite the right word, and I don't know how to describe them. But they just kind of ignore the whole situation. They set up here at the Masonic College. I gathered the 2 armies basically had been in and out of town before that. But anyway, that's when the presence of the Union Army was. In the September, our hero, Sterling Price, comes up here and kicks those Yankees out of town.
That's one of your favorite generals, isn't it?
We only have one small problem with him. He only stayed about 2 weeks. And there are all of these rumors that the Union Army is coming at him, or is massing their troops on his west and on his east, and they're going to come at him from both sides. He has no hopes for supplies or reinforcement, so he leaves town. Takes his whole army and leaves us high and dry. And then you know who comes back. Those boys in blue are back, set up camp up here on the hill where they were, and that really begins the military occupation of Lexington. In the spring of '62, they look out and they see all these men who haven't gone out to fight, and they decide to do something about it. So they start arresting them, finding them for not fighting, and ask them to sign the oath of allegiance. And we have Mr. Anderson over here who gets picked up. Now, I wouldn't say he's in good fighting condition because he's in his 60s now. He is asked to sign the oath, and you probably know what his answer is.
Probably,
I wasn't very gentlemanlike.
no.
Probably not.
Probably language that shouldn't be used around ladies.
Probably.
He is sent to a prison in St. Louis. About a year later, he's pardoned through political means if he will leave the state and go to a free state. And so he very quickly, I guess, goes across the Mississippi and he's in Illinois. He travels basically in the north. There is a mention he makes it to New York State, but that's about the only thing I know, so he travels. Sometime during this period, his family goes back to Kentucky, back to where they were from. At the end of the war, he joins them there, and they never come back here. Paul is the one who said if he came back, and I'm beginning to hear how Missouri became pretty radical after the war, he would have had to sign the oath. He spent 4 years away from family and home, and that wouldn't be what he probably thought was necessary. I think, too, he had a wife, Louisa.
If I'm not mistaken, it was over a strip of land that Missouri said they gave Kansas that should have been ours.
That's usually what the fights are over. Power and land.
Well, and keep what you got. Because I keep thinking that we're sitting here like Springfield. You know, it's just probably a day's journey and you're in Kansas. And if you were a slave, wouldn't that look good?
Yeah. And depending on how they were treated, yeah.
Can I move a chair?
Yeah.
He painted this room, and I was surprised he's got it all back together type thing.
Sterling Price, the Silver Fox. I think that's what they called him.
Anyone said they looked at Sterling Price's picture.
Probably not.
He was a lawyer before
Was
the
he?
war.
This is where the family had took all of their meals. And I do not know what you're interested in, so I'm going to let you ask me what you would like to know.
Did they paint the rug on there, or did they have an actual rug?
This is oilcloth.
Oilcloth, okay.
They're assuming that's what they had on the floor.
Well, from a mom, that would be easier to clean than a rug.
And you didn't have to worry about bugs and holes in your rug.
That's
True. And that is a problem.
So
It's a beautiful dining room.
I'm trying to think.
we just need light in here.
Yeah.
I was hinting to Chris about the fact that he should look into something for, I've had people ask me about, did they eat in the dark? I mean, what did they use for? Did they use candles like what we got on here? And I think the candles are one of those modern things that we
think about, yeah.
to decorate with. And
Back then they used, beeswax candles. Back in that era. They weren't made out of the same candle wax that we use today, I wouldn't think.
and
I'm not sure what time frame
Apparently
that they
changed.
switched over from beeswax to regular wax.
well, I think, now, Chris, the administrator, kind of says they had kerosene in the 50s, and I don't think they really did. That they probably used whale oil since they were wealthy.
Yeah.
Most places. I know it was becoming very expensive, and this is something I got on the, there's things like, one of the girls had a thing about they wrote with with feathers, and we're sitting here as the 5th largest city in the state of Missouri, on the river and all of this sort of stuff. And they had better ways to
They
write.
did,
Yeah.
and especially if you could afford it. Like when we went to the Arabia,
They had
all the
different
stuff
pins.
that they had back then, because the Arabia, it
Sunk in
sunk, and they brought it back up.
1856.
I've been there.
And all the stuff that they had, it's like,
Well,
it's amazing.
I was sitting there thinking, and they went past, they're taking this stuff past Lexington. Now I understand St. Joe was bigger than what we were, but you know, we're going out west, and we're hauling all of this fancy stuff, or what I think is, you have to have money to.
Yes, you had to have money.
Yeah, all
People
that
don't
stuff that
realize
was on
that.
that ship was amazing. The pencils, the slate pencils, they actually had the pins that you would dip into the
The
ink,
quills.
Yeah.
but they
Stuff like
weren't feathers. They looked like actual pins with just a point on it.
Yeah.
And that was in 1856.
The former administrator of Aid Summer Markham, one of the girls was talking about, you know, the feathers should be down here on there. And she said, well, Anderson would have had a steel tip pen to write with, not a feather.
Yeah.
So it's upstairs. The girls could use it.
Yeah, the richer people wouldn't use feathers.
It's hard sometimes because we grow up in school learning about how these settlers did without and they made do with anything and everything. Read Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, that was my favorite series growing up. But they did with the ones that didn't have money did without, like we do today, and the ones with money had all the fancy stuff.
We
No, thanks,
stop
Jason.
here because of the fact that this is where the most conflict in the battle took place over the house. As you know, the house was turned into a hospital, probably in late July, 1st of August, before even this battle took place. And when the Missouri State Guard, well, no, I will go back one. Mulligan comes and becomes the commander of the Union force because he has the most rank. The first part of September, and he knows Price is south of Warrensburg. So he really sets some men to dig the trenches and the earthworks. He does not put his hospital within the earthworks, so it's out here by itself. And when Price Force comes in, he circles the encampment with his men. Somebody around the house gets the brilliant idea about the house would be useful. They claimed that there were sharpshooters on the 3rd floor of the roof, and they needed to get rid of them. Later at a military inquiry, it was determined they weren't in the house, that they were in the yard and all. The second theory is, and one of the guys who worked there and wrote a book about it, thought the biggest incentive to take in the house is as tall or taller than the hill. And if they can get up on the 3rd floor of the roof, you know, of course, where they can see. Well, they take the house. And of course, Mulligan is furious about the fact that they've taken his hospital, which is supposed to be neutral, and he wants it back. But he has to ask 3 units before the 3rd one, an Irish brigade, agrees to go take it. I read something, and it's not in any of the books, but it was in some page on the vertical file that I pulled out, and I started reading, and it talked about the first unit would come, except it was determined they didn't have bayonets for their rifles, and therefore they couldn't come because they didn't have bayonets. I've never heard that story, and I don't know if there's any truth to that one, but since you work volunteer at Wilson Creek,
It's very
maybe
possible.
you've heard something like that.
It's very possible. But they refused because they didn't have the equipment to come.
Well, we talked about have no bayonets, so that was disqualifying them.
That's
I
very
really
possible.
thought that part of it is, it's pretty open by here, and they would be, You know,
Sitting
the
down.
suicide type thing.
Yeah.
The books talk about 80 men left the trenches and went over the earthworks, and only about 40 came in the back door. Now, they aren't all dead, the 40, because there's very few people died in this, according to official records. They come in the back door, the Missouri State Guards run out the front, except the 4 or 5 men that go up the front, go up the stairs. Now, the Union boys are scared to go upstairs. I think they've come through hell and they aren't real anxious. So there's George Palmer. He's a bugler for the Union Army. Jumps here on the stairs and says, "Men, if you'll follow me, I'll lead," and charges up the stairs. For this act of bravery, he is awarded the Medal of Honor many, many years later. So they find 4 men up there, they march them down, and you can see what they did to them.
Is that the bullet hole?
Yeah, they kill the first 3. They shoot the first 3. William Manser is number 4. So he turns around and goes back upstairs. I don't know, he doesn't write about how he escaped being shot, but he turns around and goes upstairs again. He runs into a Union soldier, and the Union soldier wants him to go back down, and he refuses to go. And so they argue. And finally, the Union soldier says, "Look, man, it's either the stairs or a bayonet." And Manser decides real quickly, the stairs aren't too bad after all. So he comes down, and his picture and this part of the story is on the wall in the visitor center. And from what I can get, he's standing up here at the top of the stairs, or close to it. And he goes over the banister and breaks a bone in his leg or his foot. And he hobbles into probably the back parlor, and the Union soldier takes him prisoner, and he lives to tell about it, or write about it. The movie has him going into the front parlor, but I think it's the back parlor.
Makes more sense.
It makes more sense he jumped over there and run in there instead of shooting across there.
Yeah, it does. We're going to go up.
That's what I thought that was. So I seen it. I seen the hole. No, that's got to be a bullet hole.
There is more battle damage upstairs. You'll see it on the facing of the stairs and above you. And when you get in the rooms, if you look for it, you can see it.
Oh, wow.
This is Davis furniture, 10 feet tall, and just very ornate. Got a lot of carving on it.
It's pretty.
In my mind, I'm like, how in the world did they get that in here?
It comes apart.
Yeah, but still, I'm sure it's heavy. So I'll get it.
When you
too.
have farm hands.
But you know, I watched this one movie about railroad ties, and they put those railroad ties on those guys' shoulder, and they'd walk off with them. And I think, God, no man today would ever.
These snowflakes today, they would be like, oh, I got a splinter.
I got to cut that out now.
Oh, sorry.
So I think they were used to doing an awful lot of heavy labor.
They were. That's
Yeah.
still, it's so beautiful.
It is. The mirror's sticking out.
And
But they made that so they could tilt and stuff.
Yeah.
So you get the angle you wanted.
Yeah, they're pretty stout guys back in the day.
it's what?
Pretty stout guys back in the day.
Yeah, and they were used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And today we're just not. We've got forklifts and we've got all kinds of stuff that we get things up. They also talk about there are rope rooms on the 3rd floor railing up there, and the former administrator thought it was that they hauled furniture up that way.
No, I'm sure they did use a pulley system and stuff.
You know, I always thought it was kind of crazy, and then I watched some movie, not a movie, but some documentary.
Yeah, I've seen them
about,
where they've hoisted stuff up.
yeah, they were outside
Mhm.
hoisting this stuff up to the second floor or third floor, I don't know. The one thing I am fascinated with Mary Ellen's story. She's 9 years old at the time of this battle, and she comes out with her relative, Emily Kimmel, to nurse the soldiers, she says. She goes on to say, they brought the soldiers bread and water, and I think that to her was nothing
Yeah.
at that age. So, and it also gets me to say that the Union was out of water by the first day and had very little food left by the third.
They were aiding the Union soldiers.
It's what?
They were aiding the Union soldiers.
The wounded.
Oh, the wounded. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they had in here after the battle, whether the Union soldiers were thrown out right away or what. I do know that there are, in the books, they quote soldiers' letters where the ladies of the town came out and brought delicacies and food to the gun emplacements. This is another Davis bed. It was made in New Orleans by Cretan Ballard, who's a famous New Orleans furniture maker, and it had a half canopy on
Oh, okay.
it, but it has disappeared.
There's no telling.
I think it went into a modern home and 10-foot stuff don't fit.
Probably.
We have a hair wreath up here. I think maybe is a family piece because it's open and all. And then, of course, in this room, we have our bathroom facilities displayed prominently, except that these have no lids, which were very necessary in those days.
Yes.
Chamber pots.
Married Larry and went up there, and they didn't have a bathroom in the house, so you had to go out to the outhouse. And they got water into the kitchen because his aunt had come down and set fire to the curtains in the kitchen. So his father put a spigot in the kitchen. So in case she ever did it again, they'd have water. And that's the closest. And you're right, this was in the 70s when and they didn't have a bathroom ever in the house.
I was watching some places in Alaska. There's still like homesteads in Alaska that don't have, they still have the outhouses and don't have inside. I'm not sure Alaska's where I'd not want.
Especially
What
towards it
outhouse?
gets there.
Did you have questions about anything?
Oh, I'm just taking it all in.
Well, when we come out here, the one thing we have out here is a cannonball hole.
Oh, wow. Cannonball hole. Good.
The Union shot a cannon and the ball came through a roof, crossed the attic. I don't know whether it hit the wall and then bounced down. That's my guess is what happened to it. But anyway, I have
That's so
not
cool.
been upstairs and looked for it.
Cannonball hole. No picture.
Oh,
of
the old secretary's
like the
desk.
Congress.
What?
The old secretary
Benjamin
desk.
Franklin.
Yes. And I told you we had a feather to write. Got up here. This is just set up for summer. The wool rug off the floor. I think it's filthy dirty by the time spring comes, and the lady is just very happy to get it off her floor and put away so that maybe the moths don't get into it. The drapes are off the windows. We did keep shears on them, but he painted the room and they came off, and the administrators bought new and no one's put them up. And I don't volunteer.